Good evening, everyone. We'll call the December 15th, 2022 council meeting to order. I would ask for everyone to rise. I did not know I was giving the invocation tonight, so you're going to get what you get. And please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time that we can come together, and we pray for wisdom and discernment as we make decisions on behalf of the citizens of Clearwater. Lord, I pray that we might just slow down in this holiday season and really enjoy the things that matter the most. And I pray for those who have lost family members who they are not going to be able to celebrate with this year. I pray that we might just be that much kinder to those around us. Take a little time and also understand that there are some that do not have all the blessings that we have, and that we can be more generous towards them, both in mind, spirit, and our pocketbook. And we turn all these things over to you and pray your blessings in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to introduce the dais. Michael Delk is sitting in tonight. David Albritton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Beckman.
Good evening.
Councilmember Bunker.
Good evening.
Councilmember Teixeira.
Good evening.
And our city attorney, David Margolis.
Good evening.
We have a service award to start the evening. I guess this was before child labor laws, but I'd like to call David Pearson forward for 10 years of service.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, David. Thanks for keeping us all up and running.
Of course. Thanks.
I would ask if there are any amendments to the minutes of the December 1st, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. At this time, I'll open it up to citizens to be heard. If there are any citizens in the audience that would like to speak to items that are not on the agenda, we ask you to come up, introduce yourself, fill out a comment card, and we respectfully ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Hibbert and the council members. My name is Mark Birnbaum. March the 17th of 22, the plat notice to split 2465 Nursery Road of September 21st was found with technical errors. Sending out a second notice on March the 22nd and mailing to 60 residents did not solve the legal matters since the second plat notice never came before the City Council. I want to show you that we have a plat notice, and there are two things circled: institutional and flexible standard development. This is the September one, and this is the March one. Again, institutional and flexible standard development. Why am I bringing it up? Well, guess what? Section 2 of the Municipal Code, 12-03, flexible standard development, lists the categories, and there is educational, there's places of worship, but there's no school. Then on section 2-1202 is a document called minimum standard development, and it lists 3 categories: educational facilities, places of worship, and schools. But there's a problem with that. And the problem is section 4-302, and it deals with the fact that there's a limitation on the square footage of what a building can have on the school property, 5,000 feet or less, 5,000 square feet or less. Well, right now we have plans for 20,570 square feet of one building and 17,463 feet of another building. Now, what we have is a problem. Everyone should see the problem, that the plat notices that were issued, one approved and voted on, and one that was presented and went through platting and DRC, never got voted on. And so we have a problem. All these permits should be revoked for this school. By using Nursery Road, the school will adversely impact the neighborhood due to noise and increase of traffic of vehicles according to the institutional district of Section 2-1201. The intent and purpose is clear. I'm going to take a part of it, and it says, in support of quality of life of citizens of the city of Clearwater without adversely impacting the integrity of adjacent residential neighborhood and by diminishing the scenic quality of the city of Clearwater and negatively impacting the safe and efficient movement of people and things within the city of Clearwater. It's pretty obvious. We should not have a charter school on Nursery Road. It's unsafe, it's dangerous. And so I hope I have opened up another needle in a haystack, as I would say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Birnbaum. Anyone else for citizens to be heard?
I'm leaving a copy.
I'm Mr. Haluba. And I can't let the debacle about Mary O'Connor, the former Tampa police chief, go unmentioned. Just gonna quote something that has been going around. It's very bad news for cops everywhere. And a lot of people are saying things like, how the heck can this happen? You know, she gets arrested for assaulting a law enforcement officer, gets fired, rehired, and then is made police chief. I don't know. There's plenty of bad things going on right here in Clearwater with the Clearwater Police Department. Now, I have been instructed that if I want a letter of reprimand issued for a certain police officer, that I have to petition Mr. Slaughter for it. That's what I'm doing here in a very public way. I'm hereby requesting Mr. Slaughter stop covering up for Byron Lou Hatcher, and at very least, with all the bad news this guy is, and the horrible example he is of a Clearwater police officer, he should at very least have been given a letter of reprimand. To my knowledge, he is not. This is a letter of reprimand that was in no short order issued upon my request, so it can be done. Let's call Mr. Hatcher what he is. Call him out for his bad acts before he gets fired and is made police chief.
Anyone else for citizens to be heard? Okay. I would ask if there are any items on the consent agenda, items 7.1 through 7.9, to be removed either by the council or by citizens. Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda items 7.1 through 7.9.
Funding and Community Development Block Grant Funding from HUD, Performance and Evaluation Report, by December 30th of each year. It's called the CAPE, ending on September 30th, 2022. The main purpose of the CAPE is to document our use of federal funds, which of course are CDBG and home. In the narrative sections of the report, we discuss our accomplishments using state and local funds, and this ends up making the report representative of our whole body of work in the housing division. Through the CDBG and home program, we spent $1,375,885. We also spent an additional $988,750 in state and local funds. We also spent $230,000 in CDBG CV, which is an allocation from HUD specifically to address the impacts from the pandemic. So what did we accomplish? Under very challenging home buyer conditions, we closed 7 down payment assistance loans totaling $296,300. We spent $435,000 to complete the rehabilitation of 12 single-family homes. This is probably our most staff-intensive program. We completed a major rehabilitation at Lexington Club at Renaissance Square. Our contribution was $300,000, but this helped leverage a much larger project that rehabilitated all 240 units at the complex. As you know, we have a strong relationship with Habitat for Humanity. They completed 9 new single-family homes in the program year. We spent nearly $600,000 on 14 public facility projects with various partners. We spent $166,500 for 8 public service providers. With CDBG CV funding, Suncoast Housing Connection provided mortgage assistance and foreclosure counseling. The Homeless Leadership Allowance provided housing navigation services, and Directions for Living helped to relocate seniors from the former Prospect Towers. We provided just over $107,000 to Prospera and to Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation to provide education and technical assistance to Clearwater business owners and entrepreneurs. We provided $26,325 to Suncoast Housing Connections and Tampa Bay Neighborhood Housing Services to provide homeownership education and counseling. 151 Clearwater residents took advantage of this program. And as you all know, we contributed $250,000 in general funds to 6 organizations working to eliminate homelessness. We collect accomplishments throughout the year. We're required to do that by the funding sources. So we do track the number of people served through those accomplishments. Overall, using state, federal, and local funds, our total investments benefited 21,787 individuals, 175 households, and 18 businesses. On Tuesday of this week, the Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board unanimously passed a motion recommending City Council approval of this item. I'll take questions, please.
Questions for Mr. Lane? Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.1? See none, do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 8.1.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 10.1.
Establish a Ready for 100 goal in which the city aims to transition 100% of electricity consumed in city operations to clean energy by 2040 and 100% of electricity consumed citywide to clean energy by 2050, and adopt Resolution 22-22.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sheridan Jamont, Sustainability Coordinator. This evening, staff has brought forward a Ready for 100 resolution for your votes. Approval of this resolution is recommended by the city's Environmental Advisory Board, which created the draft. I'm happy to go through the presentation that was provided at the work session this week, if requested. Happy to also answer any questions.
Would you like to see the presentation again?
No.
Okay, questions? Anyone from the public to speak to this item? All right. Obviously, I've asked a bunch of questions about this. I'm still concerned about the overall costs. We've talked about what some of the expenses are, but they're very general. And these are really comments, so I'm not going to ask you anything, just so you know. But one of the things I am concerned about, and I have to say I disagree with Mr. Margolis on the difference between a goal and a policy. Webster's would disagree too. I think they're different. And I talked to one of the mayors of the cities that's already passed this, and he said, well, it's just aspirational. And he said, I don't think we're going to meet it, but we decided to go ahead with it. I will tell you, when I pass a resolution and vote for something, I plan to accomplish the task. I don't believe in window dressing. I think if we do something, we ought to complete it. Otherwise, we shouldn't be moving towards that goal. So I don't mind having goal in the actual resolution. I would like to take out policy where that is, because I don't think they're equivalent. But that's just my opinion. I know the other day I was going to go down on this 4-1, which is just fine. Councilmember Albritton and then the Vice Mayor.
Okay, so is it really aspirational? Consider this. Is technology evolving faster than society can handle? Technology moves faster than our imaginations can keep up with. We invent one breakthrough technology today, and then tomorrow inventors transform it into another we never imagined possible. This has always been true, but it's happening faster than ever and accelerating, which makes it hard to know what the world will look like in 27 years. 30 years ago, people barely knew what a computer was. A decade ago, you couldn't buy a plane ticket, book an Uber, or rent an Airbnb on your phone. The past 10 years have brought us countless life-changing innovations. Technology's disruptive nature continues to transform our world. This week, U.S. scientists reached a long-awaited nuclear fusion breakthrough. Researchers have been able to create more energy than it takes to make a nuclear reaction. It's a giant step toward a clean energy future without fossil fuels. The automotive industry is making headway in creating fuel using hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. And the byproduct of using it as a fuel is water, not carbon. So I think it may be a great goal to aspire to, but I'm confident that we will be able to probably be there before 2040. So that's why I'm voting for this. I think we're moving at the speed of light here. And if we say we are, I think we're actually going to meet that goal before the dates we have in here.
Vice Mayor.
Well, that was just amazing. Thank you for that statement. I just want to applaud. I fully agree. And I appreciate, you voicing that information. I just wanted to say that our city staff has done an incredible job, put incredible work into putting us on the right path to realize these type of clean electricity goals. We're already realizing significant savings with our energy efficiency programs, and we're on track to save so much more with our solar installations that are coming. You might not know that Duke is raising their rates, so that means our savings are going to be even greater, and payback will be even sooner. We're on the path to save millions of dollars that can be reinvested into our community. It's exciting to see our Green Print 2.0 emission goals be joined with clean electricity goals and financial savings. I wanted to extend a thank you to our city staff, in particular our sustainability coordinator, Sheridan Gamont, our Director of Innovation, Micah Maxwell, and to our Environmental Advisory Board as well, for bringing this forward, as well as residents who have communicated to us their support for this initiative. And it's really good to feel like Clearwater is a leader in both reducing pollution and saving significant amounts of money that we can put back into our community. So thank you for bringing this forward, EAB, staff for doing the work to find all of the data that shows that we can make these strides and improvements, and I'm happy to vote yes on it.
Councilmember Bunker.
If it's aspirational, I want to aspire to that and actually complete it. I don't think that's out of the question, and we should be working toward that, so I vote yes.
I haven't called the question yet.
Yeah, I echo a lot of the comments that were said before. I really view this as all of us getting together and make a commitment, not only as a city but as a county, to aspire to be responsible to our environment. I do not see this as a legally binding contract, and it doesn't stress me out, to be honest with you. I just really feel that this is an aspirational document that unites us in one goal. So I will be voting yes for it.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 10.1.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a resolution.
I'll go ahead with you. Mr. Margolis, go ahead and read the resolution.
Resolution number 22-22, a resolution of Clearwater, Florida, targeting a transition to 100% renewable, zero-emission, clean energy electricity for city operations by 2040 and citywide by 2050, declaring an intention to form partnerships to reach these clean energy goals, directing city staff to take measures to reach these clean energy goals, and providing for an effective date.
repeat the motion?
Oh, did you? Okay.
Wanna do it?
Ideally, we would
Okay,
do that.
so I move to approve agenda item 10.2.
Second.
I've
Wait,
already
wait,
asked
wait,
for
That's 10.2
Oh,
is.
sorry, 10.1.
public comment on 10.1. Is there anyone that wants to speak to it?
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Again, before we take the vote, again, I'm not against the goal. I just wish we had more clarity on how it's done. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 10.2.
Approve a venue license agreement between the City of Clearwater and Ruth Eckerd Hall to provide quality venue management services, ticketing services, and food and beverage services at the Waterfront Amphitheater venue, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jim Halios, Director of Parks and Recreation. On Monday, staff brought forward to you at the work session a license agreement between the City of Clearwater and Ruth Eckerd Hall for venue management services. Based on some feedback from the council, we revised 2 sections within the contract, notably creating a section 2.2, which requires the licensee to partner with the city sustainability staff in developing sustainability plan, and have Ruth Eckerd Hall shall submit a report to council on sustainability measures for the venue within 90 days of the execution of this agreement. And then also revising section 3.7, which will delete any reference to specific properties or specific property owners and replace the same language with requiring the city to maintain a vehicle movement lane on Drew Street to accommodate emergency access and egress from nearby properties, or words to that effect. And joining me tonight is Susan Crockett, CEO of Ruth Eckerd Hall, and along with Jay Ravens, our Finance Director, to answer any questions that you may have, and I'll open the floor to any questions.
Questions for Mr. Halios or the rest of the staff or Ruth Eckerd? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I do have just a few questions. I wanted to start by thanking staff and Ruth Eckerd Hall for getting the information to us this week. So we have a number of attachments to the agenda, particularly financial numbers, so that's appreciated. It looks like, going forward, we have a plan to recoup our costs, which is not surprising, right? I'm fully supportive of Ruth Eckerd Hall and what they can do for our community, bring to our community, and supporting this venue. So I'm excited about it. And being excited about it is not the same as, doing due diligence and making sure we have the best information in black and white in a contract that we sign. And so I looked at the changes and just have a couple, I went over a number of them this afternoon with our city attorney and feel comfortable, but there are just a couple of questions I have about some specific parts. And one of the things, one thing that came up that I had noted for Monday, but I was only going to choose a few things to talk about on Monday, but this is still in the contract, and I think it's just part of a good relationship, is when you talk about collecting data on the users of the venue, people who order tickets, where they come from, what's their address and all that, and that's all proprietary, and I get that, but I'm thinking if there's a way or an event where we gather information for city or community events that are really primarily geared towards our residents, if Ruth Eckerd Hall has any data about who's attending, I think that would be helpful to us to understand what residents are using the venue. Are people from throughout our city coming down to use the venue? Are we missing some neighborhoods? Or, it's just, we're not going to do anything specific with the data, but just kind of give us an idea, is it being utilized kind of equally by our residents? So I don't know if that can be shared, because otherwise everything's like we're not sharing anything.
Ms. Crockett?
Thank you. Susan Crockett with Eckerd Hall. Absolutely. I would be happy to do an annual statistical report as well to kind of give you an idea. I think when we talk about the privacy of the information, we're just talking about people's home addresses, their phone numbers, that kind of a thing, which we do always assure. our purchasers, that remains private with us.
So you could just do zip codes. We had this many from this zip code. I think that would be
And if there are
helpful.
questions that you have and you want to submit them, we'll be sure to get you those answers.
Okay, that sounds good. Then I had, there's a couple of documents that aren't really identified as like Exhibit A, B, or C, but there's a preliminary asset list, not finalized. It starts with stage production equipment and all that. So there's, and there are numbers, capital investments on the left. And those are all investments by Ruth Eckerd Hall so
Correct.
far. The ones that are left blank, like seating, wayfinding signage, Listen Everywhere Wi-Fi, the city's paying for that, but we don't have a number. I mean, that's not part of your 156,200.
That's correct.
Correct? Okay. All right. Same thing with the VIP furniture, dressing room furniture. City pays for all that?
Yeah, there's a question, trying to figure out what exactly they have and what we might need to supplement. And, there's been some revisions through the process, so we want to make sure that we have, as much information as we can get.
Okay. So those things in yellow, to be determined, is that to be determined who pays for them?
I'm determining, right now,
Yeah.
the city isn't committing beyond what they've already committed.
Okay.
So I just need to find out if those items are included or if we're going to supply those.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing being negotiated at this point.
Okay. Okay. Is the marquee, does that mean the great big, like a digital sign? Is that what that means?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the plans are for that. I mean,
Okay.
what I've heard is we're going to have to do something, but that the city's going to have to do something, I will say that.
Okay, and probably in conjunction with you as far as discussions about what we're choosing.
Sure.
But as far as paying for it, we don't know yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it'll also be who the sponsor is hopefully going to be too.
Yeah.
Of that marquee sign,
Yeah.
sure. Mhm. I don't understand what on the City of Clearwater, Imagine Clearwater Amphitheater venue, I think this is from Webb. It is. It's per Webb, conservative utilization scenario. That first column, not, what does that mean and why aren't those costs being carried over in the horizontal, years 1, 2, 3? So, yeah.
Good evening, Jay Ravens, Finance Director. What I'm providing you there is a comparison of what Webb provided us as an estimate of the operations back when they provided their study some time ago.
Like 2017, 18, like, okay.
So that was what we've been basing our general fund forecast and our budgeting off of, along with more current estimates from Parks and Rec of the other costs of park beautification, landscaping, et cetera. But, so that's just for comparison purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And then year 1 through 5 are under the current proposed agreement
Okay,
for comparison. So you can
Okay.
see per the bottom line, per Webb,
Yep.
we were estimating a deficit of 1.6 million in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
The first year of this agreement, we're projecting a surplus of 121,000.
okay. And then, I guess to go along with that, there were a couple of questions about the costs that, it was some costs related to, and I'm just going to find the right, there's so many documents that came in kind of, I think, Susan, they were numbers related to, here they are. So there are numbers provided by Ruth Eckerd Hall. And so it's the document that was attached to my email that I sent out on Tuesday, and then it came back. Okay. So expenses by category, we've got, so these are that's right. I did get this clarification from Mr. Margolis, but I guess it was, for example, I was looking at food and beverage going across year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, as well as wages and benefits, operations. And I would think that these would go up because you're going to increase staffing and costs are going to increase, the cost of food and beverage is going to increase and all that. But what he explained to me, and I guess you can confirm,
Percentages.
is there percentages of your, right? That's what that is. Okay.
Not raw numbers.
Right, okay. And then I guess this is pretty, key, at the bottom of this page, so again, this is that attachment, we have, the revenues coming in would be the surcharge per ticket, naming rights to the city, see where I'm at, that box at the bottom, and then 25% profit share, over 8% profit margin, and that kind of kicks in year 3. All of that is understandable. What do I know about venue management? But it seems reasonable, right? But my question is then, so the total fees and profit share to the city, so we have $1,102,895 for the first year, and then we don't kind of hit our at least $2 million sweet spot until year 4, which is okay, because then as we go along, hopefully the money's going to flow in. But my question is, and this, so there's 2, and it's probably more to Jay, is what fund are we going to be using to pay our debts on years 1, 2, and 3? Is it going to come like from general funds? I would assume, but.
Yes, general fund would be covering any deficit from the operations, and along with the overall maintenance, the rest of the maintenance of the park and the debt service on the bonds.
All from the general fund, okay. And then this is just another question that's about protecting the city. So if we go through in years 3, 4, and the numbers just aren't looking like we're projecting, I was wondering, what levers do we have to make a correction? And to me, it looks like the levers would be a surcharge per ticket, like bumping those up a little bit. Are there other levers that I'm missing?
I can't speak to that. I don't know what room there, I think, are you talking about renegotiating the agreement?
I think, that's what it might be, and whether or not, it's just an addendum where we're going to decide in years 4 and 5 to bump things up, but what other means would there be to help?
I think there's great potential in sponsorships, and I think once the venue is open and it starts to prove itself and build its reputation, I think it's going to attract more sponsorship dollars. So I think there's a lot of room there.
Okay. So I think that's what I've got on financials, and I do appreciate getting those financials for our vote tonight. The other concerns I have, and I do appreciate the sustainability language. I have a lot of confidence in our sustainability staff and you and what you've done out at Ruth Eckerd Hall. So I think there are concerns about fencing and public access, which are huge for our residents. And so it's my understanding that there are some concerns about securing the fencing appropriately, that you are expecting to have that stage totally fenced off and non-accessible unless there's a performance going on and you're in control of who's up there.
Correct, unless it's in use by us or the city.
Okay. And so right now, do we have a means to, and a plan to secure it to your satisfaction with fencing?
I understand that I think some of that we're still working through it.
Yes, we're working through that, as Susan indicated. Again, these are things that we're going to find out as we go along and what works best to have up there. We have fencing that's already planned for the amphitheater around the perimeter of it. But as far as fencing and accessing on the stage, there'll be different mechanisms that we can use to secure it. I don't know that putting a 10-foot tall chain link fence around the stage is going to be appetizing and nice for everyone, but we'll figure a way to do that. But again, I think that will be best served with that as we move a little further along in the process.
I think Mr. Delk has something.
Is it helpful if I provide a little more
Yeah, I think it would be helpful.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me, if I may.
Because I think we're trying to meet people's expectations and also balance safety and protection of expensive equipment. I mean, most of the equipment will be locked away between shows, but there will be some in the rafters that's going to stay in place.
Yes, I think, we're at a point where with the construction, we're starting to have those operational considerations really come to the surface, as one would expect. We don't have an operational history, so we're going to start developing it, but we're not going to wait till day one to start developing it. So we've been working with Ruth Eckerd Hall as a partner to kind of get the orientation on these some of these operational characteristics. And so I know this has been a question. And so what I would like to do is to kind of walk through with you where staff has tried to lead us, given what we've heard from you all as your various priorities over the years. This does not mean that we are one and done, and that we won't have operational changes and impacts once we're up and open and working with our partner to manage the facility. But what I would like to briefly show council is the permanent fencing plan for the arena. Venue, rather. Here we are. So what we have in the yellow outline area is a series of permanent fencing that will be in the park. This is going to be decorative fencing, and it will be a combination of 4 feet and 6 feet fencing. So the red area, which is, I'll point to the red areas, which are right here, along the rear of the facility, and right in this particular area here is an area of 4-foot fencing. What I want to point out is some of this area in here is where we'll have vendors and that sort of thing. There's facilities and everything set up there once we're secured for an event. There are sections in place of 6-foot fencing, decorative as well, that extend in the areas up here towards the bluff walk. This is not enclosed sections of fencing. So when the venue is not in use, there will be the opportunity for the public to have access to the area. That is what we believe to have been our definitive direction, is to provide access. But we understand that during ticketed events, we are preparing with, and again, our staff who's working on planning for the operational impacts of the venue will be working with our partner on how we go about securing that for ticketed events. And they're being the professional operators of that are going to have their very specific ideas on in terms of how they want to manage that secured access for our ticketed events. If I could focus in a little bit more on the venue itself and show you what we are doing here. The current iteration as we are constructing this is the stage area. So right now the stage itself is not cordoned off, but the area of the stage floor will be locked, and everything else beyond the yellow lines here will be secured area behind the stage door. What we have here in the back is a combination of like garage or large doors that will slide together and secure the back of house. So what we would have, if you see a seat pattern here, which is a concept seat pattern, the seats are not permanent, so there may be times when the seats are there may be times when the seats are out. I think right now, with working with our partner, when the seats are in place, we're certainly going to want to maintain security of the area generally. If the seats are not there, then that will not any longer be a factor. One would presumably be able to access, based on that permanent fencing scenario that I just showed you, the area under the canopy of the lawn. If as a matter of operational impact, it's determined that we need to do more to extend the security of the area here, then this is certainly something that we can do. We're not precluded from making any further changes, but as a construction status right now, we're not adding that change or redesigning. There's design for that, and I think you all understand that given the timeline where we are with anticipated opening, the construction dollars and that sort of thing, at some point we have to quit designing things, so we need to build it. So right now we're in the building it stage, and once we're up and running, then we'll determine if we need to make operational changes when we're working with the partner on management of the venue. And again, this is based on our understanding of what council policy and direction has been in the past, and it's very deliberate in terms of what we intended to deliver. There are two areas here that are where the public has accessible access to the kind of the special service area where the off to the sides. Both of these are going to be protected by kind of roll-down doors that will block access to the stairwells from here, so that when the venue is not in place or in operation, that will be secured. There are two large public restrooms located here at the side of the venue. I think those can be locked or unlocked based on need. If it's a ticketed event and it's enclosed, it'll be there for the patrons of the venue. When the venue is not in use, those restrooms theoretically could be made available to the public if demand calls for it. If it's a slow day, if there are not a lot of folks in the park, please remember that we have another public restroom facility near the library at the end of the bluff walk. We also have another restroom facility down near the lake and the marina area. So this can be opened or closed as necessary, depending upon the demand of the park. So right now, that is the construction plan. That is what we are building. But we are having conversations on a regular basis with our partner about anticipating and planning how to deal with the operational impacts once we're up and running.
Any questions for Mr. Delk?
Sure, I do.
Vice Mayor.
So those restrooms that are right next to the venue, is that our call about whether or not the park's real busy this weekend? And we want to open them
My
up?
understanding of the agreement, that is something that we can manage if the venue is not in use.
Yeah.
Once the venue goes under use, then it will be our partner's responsibility to manage the access to the bathroom. So they'll be enclosed, they'll be within the ticketed venue area.
Okay. And so the venue has removable seating, so these are chairs, right? And they're going to go on AstroTurf, I was told today. I was wondering okay, so they go there. And there's, an expense to setting up and taking down chairs. So I'm wondering, what are the thoughts, you had conversations about, if chairs are up on a weekend, we have a weekend event, and then there's going to be another weekend event the next weekend, are those chairs going to stay up so that our residents aren't going to access that area? Or is the expectation that the chairs come down and then people can access the shaded, parts of that venue?
Well, I think they're temporary seating, non-permanent seating, I should say, is probably more the correct term, intentionally by virtue of our charter limitations. So I think it's a matter of us working with our partner in terms of they are responsible for setup and takedown of the chairs.
Right.
So it may depend on, I think the way the agreement is drafted right now, there's a certain amount of flexibility for us that if we do 3 concerts pretty close together, let's say over 5 or 6 days, we would not necessarily have to ask them or tell them to remove the seats at that point after every show. We could have, when you've got a series of events. That may be an area where operationally, again, we're going to work out a comfort level with Ruth Eckerd Hall and, in terms of the venue is what is the period of time when, we may need access to the venue space. We may ask for chairs that, if they are there for some reason for a series event, that they be removed for our use. It would be, as I understand the contractual language right now, would be up to Ruth Eckerd Hall to remove the chairs. But I think on the other hand, it gives us the flexibility if we're doing, we do Jazz Holiday, for example, and maybe 3 or 4 days later there's another show scheduled by the hall, then theoretically we wouldn't have to take up the chairs just to put them right back down. And I think some flexibility on that is to an advantage of both of us probably.
Well, we tried for operational efficiency, and we did that when we had the stage that we brought in. We would bring it in for, several weeks at a time because the setting up and tearing down is very expensive. I mean, I think when we go back and look at trying to turn dials and pull levers for profitability, part of it is efficiently operating it. Do we need restrooms open? Do we need to pull the seats out? All of that's labor, which has a cost. And
I would say yes, it is labor and has a cost, and that's specifically my point. And my point is that it's a labor and cost for Ruth Eckerd Hall. And that's okay, because you've taken on, that responsibility. But if my conversations may be the public who says, wow, we don't, I want to walk down there more, I want to be under that shaded structure more, whatever. I just, worry if, a worst-case scenario, if the chairs are up there for 2 weeks because there's, an event here, and then 2 weeks from now there's another event, and it just saves money to leave the chairs there. In the meantime, our residents can't access that shaded part of the park. I mean, and I really, I do believe that you've, going to be a good partner and all that. But there is a component of being a public servant and looking out for tax dollars to make sure it's in black and white, because maybe you're not going to be here next,
One of my concerns is that every time you move those chairs, there's going to be wear on the chairs.
Yeah,
You've got to
yep.
stack them up, roll them up, and
Yes,
so it's not
yes.
just cost, it's also long-term, the impact on that asset, which the city purchased the chairs, and it's quite expensive to replace them.
It is,
So
but it's not like
trying to
that,
find-
that can't be the white living room that nobody goes into for our residents. It can't be that. It's got to be accessible to the residents. At least that shaded structure. I mean, I look at our Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition and, a group of people that have, sent to us a whole list of, look at all these great events and things that we can do here in this shaded part. And if they don't get a lot of access to it, they're going to be heartbroken. And what I find, that's a challenge for us, and it has to do with our charter, and I asked this, when I first got elected, well, can we build a little something, a little a little stage over on the park side of it, and we can't. And so this is what we have to work with, and we've got to really make sure, for me, I need to make sure that residents feel that that's their venue, and that at least the shaded part. I'm okay, you want to lock the stage, and people aren't going to access the stage, but when not in use, and I mean, not chairs set up for 8 days because I don't want wear and tear, I don't want to hurt my chairs, and I don't want to pay the labor to set them up and take them down. Yeah.
Councilmember Teixeira, then Bunker, then Albrecht, so.
So a few things. I want to thank the staff and Ruth Eckert Hall for being so responsive and so quickly to my concerns and others. I'm very happy with the changes. I also acknowledge that any remaining questions I have, I am very comfortable that will be addressed in the next few months or years, because I do understand that this is a venue that's not been built. And so there's a lot of unknowns, especially being a new venue, a new venture. And I am very confident, based on the history between Clearwater and Ruth Eckert Hall, including Capitol Theater, that our partnership is ever evolving, and we respond to each other's needs. So in that part, I'm comfortable to move on. I do want to point out, though, when we're looking at the 5-year revenue, I don't think that's the only thing we need to look at, because there's a lot of other benefits of having this amphitheater. Of course, the economic impact to our city. There's a lot of things that are not tangible, but nonetheless just as important. And so I just want to point that out. But again, thank you all for responding to our concerns, and my comfort level has certainly risen, and I'm very comfortable with what we have now.
Councilmember Bunker.
Yeah, thank you for filling in a lot of blanks this week. I just look forward to getting this thing up and running.
Councilmember Albrecht.
I'll give you kudos too. I've been looking forward to this for 5 years, and I'm so glad that Ruth Eckert is partnering with the city on this, and because I was, in the beginning, I was like, there's no way we were going to know how to do this kind of stuff. I didn't agree with a lot of things Webb brought up, but I know that he did tell us that one of the things, well, he was shooting for 2,500 seats, and we overruled that. I'm really thankful that we're at the 4,000 covered seats, because I think it really makes a difference in the size of the venues, and especially for Ruth Eckert. You got, inside venue, and then you got the Capitol Theater, and you got this beautiful outside venue. There's gonna be so many things that are happening. I kind of look back on, I was involved with the city boat docks at the bottom of the hill, right off of the, the park. And in the beginning, it was such, God, we had such arguments with people like, oh, it's going to be a failure. You're going to put 500 grand into this, and nobody's ever going to want to dock their boat there. And, you know, when they started building it, we had 2 years list of people waiting to get in. So I think this is going to be a home run. I'm glad we're the size we are, and you know what? It's simple math to me. I mean, one of the things Webb said was 1.6 million, you know, every year if the city ran it, and you're telling us we're going to actually make a profit on it. So that's kind of simple arithmetic for me. The questions I have are, and I've asked this before, and it may have been answered, but those 4,000 seats, where are they stored? Are they back of the stage?
There's a storage room that was added, that is part of the construction.
Of the stage?
Yes.
All that area. Okay, so you aren't hauling that in from some other where, you mean it's right there, you can just get them set up?
Northwest corner?
Yeah,
Correct.
okay. That was my concern, because I know they're gonna be going in and out, and I'm glad that we're cordoning the stage off, because, you know, I don't want kids twirling up on the stage. I mean, we have a smaller stage there now, and I always worry about the kids just falling off and hitting their head or something, you know, so. And also, I mean, to your, you know, what you had said about having a stage in the big green area, and that we couldn't build one. Well, the city has 2 or 3 portable stages. We'll just bring that thing up if we want to do some kind of smaller venue. You know, we have the opportunity to do that, so. Anyway.
You can always go back to referendum, too. Once success breeds success.
Yeah.
So I think once people see the success in the park with the amphitheater and everything else. The seats, are they 4-packs or 5?
I'm sorry?
The seats are not individual seats, I think they're 4-packs.
They're individual.
Yeah.
I thought we had bought the
They're locked together.
4-packs. No?
It's 4 or 5, they do lock together.
Okay. I think, you know, we just have to be careful about expectations. I mean, I know we have the naming rights at $350 in year 1. We still have to find somebody for those naming rights. I want to make sure people understand that. We do not have a limit on the number of events, which I'm fine with at this time. But I think, you know, down the road there may have to be amendments. We also promised that there would, you know, it would not be overwhelming. And, you know, when you go back to profitability versus serving the community and just having it wide open, those are all competing interests. And, you know, it will be an issue down the road where, you know, there will be more profitable shows, and that generally means the tickets are more expensive, it's not as accessible, and those will really help the bottom line. But I just think people need to be aware of competing interests, and that's going to be a balancing act that the city and Ruth Eckerd Hall are going to have to partner to find that right mix.
Agreed.
But I do want to thank all of the staff. I know this has been a long process and there's a lot of moving parts, but I think the agreement is reasonable for both sides. We want a win-win. That ultimately will result in the best outcomes. So, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just had a couple little other things. In looking at when Mr. Delk put up the perimeter of the fencing, when we look at that perimeter of the fencing, 6 foot, 4 foot, and I think the 4 foot also has extensions on it. You can put another layer of fencing to increase the height on those sections, whatever. I mean, but
I don't think so.
I thought, do we do that?
I know we were looking at it,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor. I'd have to go back and check and see what the final design we settled on.
Yeah.
But I know at one point we were looking on that and considering how we might supplement that. So I just have to check
Right.
on that for you and get back.
Mr. Alias?
Yeah, I'll defer to Mr. Delk on that one. I'm not sure, to tell you the truth, but
because part of our discussion, like a year and a half or 2 years ago, was, when we looked at the fencing, was at the 4-foot height, you know, people could conceivably pop right over and get into the concert. And so it would be some kind of an extension that was added during a venue event, a paid venue event, I guess. So that was, but more importantly, I think the question that I have now is, outside of that perimeter of the fencing, people who are there during a concert event are not being charged. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to, I mean, that's unfortunate a little bit. I mean, not for the people sitting there, but, okay. And then I just wanted a discussion about the distinction and our expectations of city events versus community events, and, you know, when those dates are chosen, who's going to choose them, what are we envisioning for city events that will those city events necessarily just be free? No tickets? It's just kind of first come, first serve, or what are you guys thinking?
Yes, those citywide versus community events, again, that's going to be at the discretion of the council when we bring forward events and items to you guys, that you can decide how we want to go forward with it, whether you want a nominal charge or you want a free event. And again, that'll relate to the level of entertainment and the level of the act that we have there. So again, that's when we bring that forward to you, that'll be a decision that will be made by the council.
Similar to the annual list we look at.
Exactly, Mayor. So very similar to what, in kind of how we're going to redo that co-sponsored list. Instead of bringing you something big in bulk like that, we'll bring you these separate items in particular for the use of the amphitheater.
But doesn't Susan need the dates like yesterday for city events for the coming year?
What we agreed to in the agreement was that if we had 365 days, you would lock in and then it would be if it's available. So it's, if you do it at the year in advance, you lock in the date, period. But then if it's after that, then if the date's available.
So I'm thinking, you know, nobody's asked me yet, but city events would be, you know, 4th of July, right? Maybe we have a New Year's Eve something there. I don't know if we have an anniversary of when the city became incorporated as a city. Would we do Juneteenth? Would we do MLK down there? I know that, you know, our NAACP that generally organizes our MLK breakfast may not be in existence in January. They're struggling to get a board. And we support a lot of funding for that event right now, don't we?
Correct, yes.
And so what if we decide we want to organize, in conjunction with our community members, an MLK event at the venue? That would be a city event,
Yes.
right? Okay. So 4th of July, what other kinds of things would you see as city events?
Well, there could be anything from like our Sea Blues Festival to Hispanic Heritage, but that's, again, we're going to work with our partner because they have the bandwidth to do some of those larger events that we don't have. You know, so that would be working in partnership with Ruth Eckerd Hall to do those type of events where more of the small scale events will be kind of the things that are in our wheelhouse, but those larger ones that require the infrastructure and the staff that our partner has, that's where we're going to be working with them.
So we'll claim the dates, though, like we want it, this, whatever. So we claim those 10 dates, whether we organize it or you organize it. So those are the 10 city events. And then who can give me an idea of what some of the community events would be?
Community events.
Mayor, Council, Chris Cook, Parks and Recreation. Clarifying that what that is, so typically between April and last year it was a little bit later, and I think May or June when we would bring that item for the co-sponsorship. What that would look like, what Jim said, is we would bring kind of recommendations at that point. So between now and April, getting together a list of what we would want to clarify as those 10 events, whether it's the city doing the mass production of it, or if it's something like working with the NAACP on the MLK event. That could be considered one of those 10 events. That way we can lock those dates in with them. A lot of them, like you said, are historical dates that we could give them the 365 notice. And then if the council chooses and we want to leave a few blank for things that can come up throughout the year, we would then work with them to find the right dates that are available for that.
That sounds fantastic. That's great. But I wanted an idea of what do we envision as community events? Because those are city events, right? So what are we envisioning as, what would be community events that would be presented at that venue?
Historically, we've had people that have come to us, like the Look Up Clearwater event, which was Upper Pinellas Ministries, the religious concerts. So that would be something where they would engage with Ruth Eckerd Hall on availability, cost, pricing, those kinds of things. So that's one example.
Well, Sea Blues originally started with Frenchies, right? They came to us and wanted to have a festival. We used to have Fun in the Sun. I can see us doing something with the softball tournament.
Would that be a community event, not a city event?
It depends if they want to do it. Valspar, I mean, there's all sorts of other outside partners that might come and want to be.
By the agreement, the difference in the agreement is that a city event comes in and it's rent-free, everything is at out-of-pocket cost. Whereas community events, if it's not designated support of one of the city events, then it becomes either a partnership with us or we would work with them on the cost of it, so. And I think we're already in speaking with Jazz Holiday, and I know we have an interest in working with the Hispanic Heritage Festival as well, because it aligns with some of our objectives in our outreach, so, it's probably going to be a combination of where it lands, whether it's city or it's just a community event that we're partnering with.
And that's okay, except that if I'm that community group, Look Up or the Hispanic Outreach Center, whoever is going to be, there's a cost. If they're not a city event, there's a cost, and there's not the city there advocating for, other than maybe we like this, we want it, but it's you and the Hispanic Outreach Center that are deciding on the cost and agreeing to that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be correct. I'm sorry, Susan. Again, I think we need to look at our model going forward, because the co-sponsored agreements, there were in-kind services that we provided, and there was also cash that we provided to a lot of these groups. Now, on the other hand, you're building an amphitheater that's, in the $20 million range, and you're giving someone, if they get free use of that, or that has to play in also. So, again, I think we need to look at our math on how we're doing that, and that's why we're going to bring those items forward. Because, unfortunately, everyone, they want to get the best rate that they can. We don't blame them for that, but at the end of the day, the city has made a substantial investment in the park, so, there's going to have to be some type of math that we come up and we present to the council, and the council's agreeable to, that, delineates these different types of events. Because if not, then we're going to get caught in the same cycle that we're in now, but we have a venue that's quite substantial that we want to make sure that it's a value that we're providing to people, and they need to understand that as well.
Councilmember Albrecht.
So I see a lot of events also taking place on the green. We used to have races and 5K, 10Ks, and they'd come in, have a blueberry breakfast or something, pancakes, and that could happen in the green very easily with a portable stage there. We wouldn't even have to, there are a lot of things we can do in that park that would keep it busy all the time and not always have to be under under the roof.
No, you're absolutely correct, and that's how we envision activating a large part of the park, is to be able to have those different type of events in there, whether they're those type of events that are free to the public, where they come in and the amount of infrastructure that's needed to put on an event in the park in general versus the venue it's a huge difference. So that will, allow those groups to be in there. And again, everyone may want to be on the stage, but is there really I think we need to look at the volume on things as well. Is it going to be, does it make sense to ramp up this, the operation of the stage and engage with our partner where we can have something like you said, where we bring the showmaster out, utilize the green and that area as well.
Anyone from the public like to speak to item 10.2? Passive tonight, okay. Any other questions? I have a motion?
I move to approve agenda item 10.2.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Go get them. Anything else, Mr. Margolis?
Mayor, on Monday at the work session, I announced that we were preparing the closing documents with Peace Memorial. Mayor, thank you for your time on Tuesday so we can get that closed. I'm pleased to announce that we are successfully closed. The CRA now has the deed to Peace Memorial, and design of the garage is underway. I do want the council and staff to keep in mind that we have made some commitments to Peace Memorial's congregation, particularly during the construction process of the garage. Specifically, while the garage is under construction and we're utilizing their site, we have committed, and the council has approved a commitment, that we will accommodate their Sunday worship services in terms of parking. They need about 120 spaces on Sunday for congregants. The purchase and sale agreement gives us, the city, the flexibility to decide exactly where the parking will be, because it's hard to know at that point whether we should put them at the old City Hall site, whether that might coincide with the Bluffs development, whether it makes sense on the CMA site, whether the North Garden Avenue garage, etc. But the city's flexibility has been preserved, but I do want to remind everyone that it will be our responsibility during the construction process just to accommodate them on Sundays. We're very excited for this process. And looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Anything else, Mr. Dell?
No, sir.
We had talked about the increase for Mr. Margolis at our previous meeting when we went through his salary, and we made it immediate, but in retrospect, it should be retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year, which would go back to October 1st. Is everybody amenable to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I've been agonizing over about the last 6 weeks. And there is a reason that the city manager is not here this evening. I had my weekly meeting with him at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And I told him that I had come to the conclusion that as much as I like him, I think he is the wrong fit for the city. And that I was going to be bringing that to the council. I am only one of 5. It takes 3 council members over 2 meetings or 4 council members over 1. I think there are some good things that Mr. Jennings has done, and I appreciate that. He came in under very difficult circumstances, following, frankly, a legend in Mr. Horn. We were all reeling from that loss, and he's done some reorg and did a great job this past weekend of recognizing employees out at the aquarium, and that got rave reviews and other good things. But I still have come to the conclusion that I think we need a change. And so I understand that he decided not to come tonight. We were going to be discussing his salary. I do not know where any of you are because we cannot talk about this except on this dais. And it has been difficult because I care about people. And decisions like this affect people and their families and everything else. But I am of the opinion that we need to move on.
Can you explain why?
I have a number of reasons. I'm not going to go into all of them. But, you know, I keep a record of things that I am concerned about. And we've talked about those. We talked about them during his review. And he did not agree with them, a lot of them, even though I have documented things. And that's fine. We can agree to disagree. It was somewhat bothersome to me that it was more or less just, I don't agree with you, rather than reflecting on some of those specifics. So I wish Mr. Jennings well. I don't really want to sit here and go through the laundry list of reasons. I feel like I have built up an adequate list that I feel comfortable moving on and finding somebody new.
Has he been given a chance to change?
Every time something occurs, I think you understand I'm not that bashful a person.
Yeah.
So I give feedback pretty consistently. So that's my opinion. You certainly are entitled to yours. Councilmember Teixeira?
This is very difficult to do this in a public forum and it's recorded, but I have been struggling in the last few weeks. I think Mr. Jennings is a wonderful person. I enjoy our banter. I think he's a very capable person. He's achieved so much. But there's been this ongoing concern that I've had where I did not see the improvement that I wanted. And it goes under the umbrella of communication. And it's put me in a position where I feel that my voice is not heard, that I'm not fully aware of all the information. And that feeling has only increased. And I have lost confidence. And hearing how you feel with the way I feel, I'm concerned that we can't continue to run this city with this lack of confidence in our city manager, because it's the way the form of government is, it's an important position. And if we don't have confidence in the person holding that position, I don't think we can move forward. And I hate the timing right before Christmas. I really do. However, I was elected to represent the city and do what I thought or think is best for this city, not for a specific person. So I agree, we need to move forward with that.
Councilmember Bunker?
Well, if you recall, when we were hiring them, I was the one who was opposed to Mr. Jennings. And I asked you folks, okay, if all four of you want him, I will make it unanimous. And I said I would, give him my full support. I feel like I have done that, and I've been happy with a lot of changes that have happened. There were projects that I was working on with John that I'm afraid will not go forward now. So I will certainly be upset if that's the case. It seems 1 year having him uproot and come down here isn't really enough time, but I would say that I'm happy with him continuing to see if we can right that ship.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Sure. I would have to, say I share your concerns, Mayor Hibbert, as well as Councilmember Teixeira. And I have been thinking about this too ever since we did his evaluation. And I think we all voiced some similar concerns at the time we did the evaluation, which was it 6 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. And I think I haven't seen a real change or difference in those 6 weeks. And I think with the activities this week and the discussions about this major Ruth Eckerd Hall contract just kind of brought it to the forefront that this is not best practice. This is not fair to us, and I certainly don't believe it's fair to our public to be fully transparent and welcome their engagement and comments because we don't have full information in a timely manner. And yeah, it's for that reason. I too have a number of data points that I've communicated along the way, and we don't need to rehash them here. But I think it's really a communication style, and helping us be the best elected officials to make the best decisions that are really crucial. We need the best information. I ask a lot of questions, but I don't need to dig down into the weeds and everything. But I think when a city manager or leader is negotiating contracts or land swaps or big projects like the air park, like Ruth Eckerd Hall, like, PSTA and affordable housing things, they need to gauge a temperature with us on what we want. And what I found what I'd like to see as we move along with whomever is leading us is that if on those one-on-ones you're not getting a consensus, or we seem to be very diverse, that's okay. Bring us together in a work session so we can actually compromise and shape. And that's what I find frustrating, is because when things are brought to us, they've already been like, this is what you get. And it's like, but nobody, I got to vote on it. Don't you think you want to know what your voter cares about? Or prioritizes, or have them help shape something? So it's just that. So I communicated that, and then when Ruth Eckerd Hall came up, it just kind of was like, wow, and I know we're far along, but even a phone call 6 weeks ago, like, hey, this is where we're at, we're finalizing some things, rather than an email at 8:49 last night, So I was prepared to kind of, I think the city would be better served. I think we need a different fit for us all.
Councilmember Albritton.
This is kind of a shock here. I think I said what I wanted to say during his evaluation. I was disappointed. I was really disappointed in the communication style during the intermodal center thing we went through. But here's why I liked John. He came from an entrepreneurial position, and I'm not disrespecting Bill Horn, but Bill Horn ran the city like an army base. I mean, that's the way because that's what he knew. And I was disappointed with Bill. A lot of times I would bring him things, he'd write it down, and then nothing would happen. I'd go back and say, well, what about, what's going on here with this? And, oh, let me write it down again. I went through that for a lot of times. I just didn't think didn't think the city had his full attention toward the end as he was thinking about retiring. And John, having a perspective from an entrepreneurial position, I thought brought a better perspective on, I think we needed somebody with a different vision that came in and could see things. And he was good at really looking at differently at land and how we could develop it. And, even the whole thing with the intermodal center, he was constantly picking sites for maybe we could move things around here and there, but I guess he didn't realize that, the 20 million was associated with the one property, and we really, when we did get that grant, we couldn't move. That was it. I listened to a lot of his ideas, and there were a lot of them I didn't like. I said, you can't put it out on 19, at 19 and so forth. But I think, looking back with him, the biggest problem right away when he came on board with the city, there were a lot of things, as you said, Mayor, that, he actually saw that we were, on the surface it looked like everything ran great, but we had a lot of problems with different departments, and he reorganized, he got rid of a lot of problem people, and, he came up with the Department of Innovation. I thought he listened to a lot of things we said, especially neighborhoods, and developed ways that we could better communicate. And I appreciated that. you know, he came down with COVID early on last year, and it wasn't, I mean, I had COVID, and I got over it in like 2 days. This thing dragged on with him. I mean, I know he had COVID fog for probably 8 or 9 months. I didn't see a real him coming out of it until after the summer, as we went into September or October. And that had a lot to do with, I think, his position of going out in the community, because he was always weak and sick, and then you had the Achilles problem. But I tell you, I really, as I said in his evaluation, I really look forward to him really doing better this coming year. I think he's got a lot of things under his belt now, and I think I would really give him credit for coming out and being a different person this year. So I'm not ready to fire him, and I'm certainly not ready to fire him a week before Christmas. I can't do that. That's, to me, that's a terrible thing to do. I mean, if he really had this opinion of him, why didn't we do it 2 months ago? When we were talking about, you know, both evaluations. We should have talked about it right then. But to say 10 days before Christmas, you're gone, it doesn't sit right with me. So that's my position.
Mr. Margolis, do you want to talk about process then?
Sure. Well, the city charter provides a system of checks and balances. You know, we all know that both the city manager and myself are accountable to council and serve at the pleasure of council, just like you do at the pleasure of voters. When it comes to removal of a city manager or replacement of a city manager, there are 2 avenues available to the council. Avenue number 1 is a single meeting. Avenue number 2 is a dual meeting system. The single meeting system says that if there are at least 4 affirmative votes to remove, that can be made effective immediately or upon any future date if council so chooses. So there would have to be 4 or 5 affirmative votes this evening in order to make that effective immediately. On the other hand, if there are 3 affirmative votes and 2 negative votes, then much like an ordinance, it would come back for a second reading. If on the second reading there are still 3 affirmative votes or more than that, then it would pass on second reading and the termination would not be effective until the second reading. The charter is designed to create a level of stability so that on one hand, if it is a 3-2 system, it gives both the 3 people as well as the 2 people time to reflect on their perspective and see if it's going to come out the same way on a second reading. On the other hand, if there is broad support with at least 4 council members, then it is intended to be something that the council can carry out immediately so that the council has accountability and doesn't have to drag it out or wait. So those are the 2 options available under the city charter.
Any questions of Mr. Margolis? This is not something I savor, Councilmember Albritton, by any stretch of the imagination. Any other questions or comments? I cannot make a motion.
I make a motion to terminate Mr. Jennings' position, or to terminate Mr. Jennings.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No?
So 3-2. I will certainly work with Mr. Jennings over the next month. You know, we're going to, when is the next meeting, the 12th?
The 12th is the next meeting. The charter requires that the second reading on this action be held at least 2 weeks after. And so the council has the option to either schedule this second reading for the next normal council meeting, or in the alternative, if council would prefer, you could schedule a special meeting, but it must be at least 2 weeks from today if you were to schedule a special meeting.
Okay. Any desire to schedule a special meeting?
What would that date be?
I believe the 29th, if I'm not mistaken.
Do we have to physically be here, or can we do a Zoom?
You will at least,
Physically.
yeah, you will at least need a quorum to be physically present, and then it would have to be whoever's present, at least 3 affirmative votes in order to pass that action item.
Why don't we schedule a meeting for the 5th, after the new year? And it be separate from everything else,
Okay.
okay? Closing comments? I'll start from my right.
Yeah, it kind of took the wind out of my sails for this, but I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and be safe over the holidays, and I guess we'll see you back here afterwards.
I think my closing comments are that being an elected official is not easy. I'm not complaining, I'm up for the challenge, but it does mean making some difficult decisions that aren't pleasant, and it's just part of the job. And you have to own those decisions, and I feel comfortable in that vote. It's unfortunate, but life goes on. Change is okay, and people can adapt and will adapt, and I have every confidence that Mr. Jennings will find another job that's a better fit. He is a good person. He's done a lot for the city, and he'll make a difference, continue to make positive differences, I believe. But I was also going to say how super proud I am of Clearwater and all of the activities that are offered during the holiday season. There is literally something every single night for families, for individuals. There's music and movies and parades and celebrations, and it's just such a great city to be a part of, and for our families. All these events are free, and it's a great time to be in Clearwater. So happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah, I can't even come up with a complaint about David Miscavige tonight. I just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and see you in the new year.
I want to thank everyone, all the organizations and neighborhoods that have invited the council to share the holidays with them. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to wish everyone a safe and wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year, and a Happy Hanukkah as well.
We're adjourned. God bless.